I think it's probably difficult not to say Ronald Acuna Jr. And now, could he have repeated the MVP level? We know how difficult that is to do year over year. But anything close to that was missed this year.
Hey, we're back with Braves color analyst on Valley Sports South, CJ Nitkowski.
Braves? I thought he was at the Rangers. Wait, or Fox. Wait, which one? Wait, which one is it?
CJ's a hustler, I got to say. I've known him for a long time. I used to do some shows with him on the radio back in the day and had a freaking blast. He's so dialed in. Loved hearing your calls this year on Braves games. CJ, how you doing, man? How's that intro for you?
That was fantastic, amazing. I know AJ knows where I am. He's full of crap. But the idea that, listen, left-handed relievers are always moving around wherever the work is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you found it, and you had an interesting season.
You stole Frenchie's job. Frenchie calls me once a week and is like, yeah. I can't believe they brought in CJ. I wanted to work 150 games this year, but CJ came in. They felt bad because he lives in Atlanta and he was working in Texas. Don't you have feelings for Frenchie?
I thought Frenchie wanted to work less.
The reason I have this job is because of Jeff Francoeur when he called me and told me he wanted to work less and asked me if I'd be interested in potentially taking this job. And that phone call that he made last September, he's got 4 kids, I believe, under 10. And so he wanted some more time at home, and it's worked out great. So I actually owe him a ton that he even thought of me, that it worked out, and that I got to spend a little bit more time at home and less time in hotels and in an airplane.
Yeah, it's awesome. Congrats, man. Great first season here. And obviously now you're watching the team in the playoffs. So let's just get your initial playoff thoughts on the ball club. Game 1 and spinning it forward to game 2. What are you thinking?
Well, obviously, Michael King was awesome yesterday, and he has been really good. And they had a hard time with that sweeper, and the sinker combination was incredibly solid. It's asking a lot. Nobody cares. They're not asking anybody to feel sorry for them to play that doubleheader, to have to win that second game, then got on an airplane, fly to San Diego. It is what it is, but it certainly wasn't an easy task. And you ran into a guy who has been really good. There's a reason why they gave him game 1, because they believe in him. So that was the biggest challenge, the idea of trying to lay off that sweeper, especially when it was off the plate. There were some good at-bats. There were some good at-bats late. There was some decent contact, but this was just a really good pitching matchup. The 2 home runs that we saw in this pitching matchup, the Braves had to do it a little bit differently, but as far as the way things worked out at the end of the day and how everybody pitched in this game, we saw 2 home runs yesterday. That was it in the entire day, which is wild. We had 4 postseason games. There was 2 home runs, so it was the pitcher's day yesterday.
So is this more indicative of all the travel, all the tough games, or is this kind of how the Braves lineup has been, where it's been feast or famine all season?
So they've gone through their stretches. There's no two ways about it, and they haven't done it with the same guys that they were anticipating when they broke camp. Obviously, Ronald is a really big loss. Throughout the year, they were losing guys left and right. No Austin Riley. Right now, you have Ozzie Albies, who can only hit right-handed, and you put him only right-handed against like a guy like King yesterday, and that's a pretty tough spot. He's had his moments right on right. But the idea that he would have to contend with that, it's not the same Ozzie Albies. So I would say it's a little bit more about where they stand right now, what the lineup looks like. This is Brian Snitker's phrase, not mine. But what's happening at the bottom of the order and what he called the rejects that have come and helped them out. And I know Whit Merrifield wasn't in the lineup yesterday, but Whit Merrifield, Ramon Laureano, Giovanni Urshela, a bunch of waiver claims that they added that helped this team even get to the postseason to begin with. And some guys that are not necessarily known, especially in the case of Urshela these days, as a bat guy first, right? We know his glove is incredible. He's actually done some really nice things for them offensively. But it has been an inconsistent offensive year. There's no two ways about it. I said multiple times throughout the regular season that as we sit there and watch how things have changed, the way this team is going to win games and the way that they mostly won games was close games. And they had to figure out a way to manufacture runs more than they did the way that they slugged a year ago.
Okay, let me ask you this. Would the Braves rather have their bye this week and won the division than having to play? Because last year when they lost in the division series, they're like, oh, we had too much time off. Guess what? They got no time off, and they didn't look so good in game 1.
Yeah, I don't know if they feel that way necessarily. I mean, the idea of giving Chris Sale some more time, the idea that you would not have to call a guy up yesterday, and A.J. Smith-Shawver, who only pitched one game for you at the big league level, to make a game 1 start in the postseason, I think they absolutely would have taken a bye and taken the extra days off if they could have gotten them, right? I mean, Sale's not on the wild card roster right now as he's dealing with that back issue. They're not here without him and the monster season that he had, and very likely going to win a National League Cy Young. So I think even from that standpoint, standpoint alone, as far as lining up your pitching, they'd absolutely take the days. What did we see last year? 3 of the teams that got the bye, that won the divisions in the top 2, did not advance past the first round. So everyone's got to figure out ways to deal with it. But I would say absolutely, based on the current state, how things went for the Braves to get into the postseason, they would have taken 2 days off. Forget about all 5. Just 2 to kind of get reset would have been nice.
We'll make sure we can just manipulate how many days off they get when they win the division next year so that it's more conducive for those teams. Why have you heard why they didn't go with Ian Anderson? Because we had heard, I know he's not on the 40-man roster, but that move could have been made with Strider. Supposedly he was the one that was pitching the best coming the end of the season, but Mark Bowman had tweeted out that, well, it's still part of his rehab season, is what Snicker said, but he's still staying ready, so he could be available for the next round. Why not go to him yesterday?
So you have basically 3 guys that you were choosing from. Bryce Elder, who was an all-star last year and has some really big moments for this team. Now, this past season, he wasn't nearly as consistent, but he still had some games. Then you get A.J. Smith-Shawver, who's got the bigger arm. And you saw some of that velocity yesterday. And I think in the case of Ian Anderson, and based on what Snit said, the one thing that probably concerned them is that he had not been in a big league environment since 2022, right? So it has been a long time. Those are your 3 options. And then, of course, as you guys well know, then you go and you dig in and you look at this really deep lineup that they have in San Diego and try to figure out whose stuff do you think would play best in the moment, then factor in all those other things that we have talked about, where guys are, and ultimately they landed on A.J. Smith-Shawver with the idea, I'm guessing here, but probably, can you get us through the order one time, right? Can you get us through the order and keep us in this game? And he nearly did. Obviously, Tatis got a hold of one that was right down the middle, and that's a tough spot to be put in for a young kid who pitched, 4 and change innings this year at the big league level. So you had all the factors. They decided on Smith-Shawver. Who knows if Ian Anderson would have thrown any better. At the end of the day, it ended up being a tight game that you lost.
Okay, 2 things. First of all, the Braves are counting on Ian Anderson next year? Is that a thing because the rehab year? Are they counting on him for next year's rotation?
I don't think so. I don't think they're saying it right now like he is going to be in our rotation. I think they're in a position where he comes into camp, they see how he looks, and he probably, depending on how the offseason goes, has a chance to make that rotation. But you have Ronaldo Lopez back. You have Chris Sale back. Those are 2 really big pieces. You have Spencer Schwellenbach back, and you're banking on having Spencer Strider back. Right, so there's 4 guys right there. And the way that Charlie Morton was talking the other day, got the impression that he's not necessarily ready to retire. So assuming health for everybody, which of course, you can't always assume that, it feels like the Braves have at least 4 spots locked down into that rotation. Max Fried will be a free agent this year as well. But I would not say that right now they're banking on Ian Anderson being in the rotation next year. Could it happen? Yes. Are they counting on it? I can't speak for them, but I would say probably not.
Okay, so obviously Smith-Shawver pitched yesterday. He didn't make it very far. What do you think ESPN showing him tipping? As a former pitcher, and I mentioned this earlier in the show, we had Glasnow a couple years ago doing some stuff. We didn't show it, but he stayed in the game. We caught it in the first inning. He stayed in the game for more innings. He was obviously out of the game, and I understand that. But is there something to be said for not showing that, or is that just fair game once he's out of the game?
Eduardo Perez is one of the best at this. We have these conversations all the time in our Loud Outs chat and kind of what we do on the radio side there with XM. And I'm fascinated to listen to him talk and the things that he picks up and the pictures that he will send us throughout the season, but especially in the postseason for those big moments. As much as we all maintain relationships, if it's not a personal relationship with a player that you like, that you're going to see in the offseason, and people may not agree with this, I think it's fair game. Your job at that moment as you step into a television booth is to bring all the insight that you have to make that a great broadcast. And so if you pick up on it, again, if it's a former teammate and a close friend, you may pause a little bit and you don't bring it up. Outside of that, I think it's fair game.
Which injury was the most painful for this team? Acuna,
it's a great question.
Strider, Riley, and even now Sale. And you can go any way you want with it. Put him in this situation from the season, Sale not being able to throw any of these big games here in the wild card. Carte blanche, all you.
I think it's probably difficult not to say Ronald Acuna Jr. And now, could he have repeated the MVP level? We know how difficult that is to do year over year. But anything close to that was missed this year. There's no two ways about it. Again, you take a team that hits 307 home runs, and now they're a completely different offensive team. So that, I'd say, if you're going to rank them, has to be number one. Losing Strider was tough for those first couple of months in particular because they had a very hard time filling the fifth spot in the rotation. It was not pretty there for a while. Every person that they tried just seemed to struggle. They could not find consistency. Spencer Schwellenbach eventually answered that question. Over the last 4 months of the season, he was excellent. This kid is really special. So they were able to recover from that one. But remember, they lost Sean Murphy for 2 months after getting hurt on opening day. And I'm not sure he ever quite got back and got in that groove that you were looking for, especially, as you guys well know, dealing with an oblique, what that can do to a guy. And he takes big swings, regardless of the count. This is a guy that swings really hard. He was coming off a career year. It just felt like he was chasing it and trying to play catch up the entire season. But Austin Riley's a huge loss right now. I mean, there's no way that you can deny that one either. But sitting there going through the list as far as big picture for the season, you missed Ronald the most by far. Right now in the postseason, the idea that you could not have Chris Sale pitch game one of this wild card series really hurt.
Tell me that I'm wrong, but the Braves losing and not winning the World Series without Ronald Acuna for the second time in 3 years is actually a good thing for the Braves organization.
You're saying if they don't win the World Series this year, it's good for them?
Yes, because if they would go and win again for a second time and Ronald Acuna is not a part of it, the person who you just said was the most important person of all their injured people, you know, the year that he had, even though he wasn't on that pace again, if they win another World Series, that would be kind of devastating that you don't have your best player, or is that a nothing thing?
So I would say this. First of all, right, remember, they got in game 162. They barely got in, and a lot of that had probably to do with the fact that the New York Mets did want to play the Padres. I'm not saying they laid down, but you know what happens in that second game in that situation. They're in. I don't think they did anything inappropriate, but they wanted the Braves to win that game so that they would have to go play the Padres and so they could play the Brewers. I do believe that to some degree. I'm not accusing them of anything, but you barely got in at a time where a team that probably didn't want to win that last game. And they did a nice job, and they finished it off. Spencer Strider was not a part of that World Series either. I remember having that conversation with him in the offseason. So you talk about two juggernauts that you've missed this year. If they found a way to win it, it is always a good thing when you win it. And Ronald is locked into a contract. We've seen this enough, though. How many teams have gone on to win without their superstars, right? It's hard. Now, you want these guys, of course, because of what they can do. Can you win a world championship without having your best player, in this case, maybe even two of your best players? It is absolutely possible to make that happen, but nobody wants to experiment and try to figure it out. I mean, the Dodgers are going to try to pull this thing off with significant pieces that they are missing as well. It does not mean that they don't need Tyler Glasnow. It does not mean that they don't need Clayton Kershaw. That's just a team rallying around the losses and figuring out a way to win.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Tigers right now, too, as they'll be the first game of the day with a chance to take out Houston, they're essentially doing a bullpen game here already in game two. And it's not like they had to do this because they were fighting for themselves in the last couple of days of the season. They clinched last Friday. So we have some of these teams where you're looking at their rotation and you're like, what is this beyond one or two starters? So with that, I wanted to ask you about the other side of the matchup here. Your thoughts on how much the Padres have changed. And, you know, I know you're covering the game, obviously, on a national perspective, too. So just sizing up the playoff field and who you like right now.
So I love the fact that there's no juggernauts, right? That there's no team that you look at and say, how are we going to beat this team? Right? We've all been playing this game in different generations where there was times where maybe the Dodgers were that team or the Yankees were that team or the best version of the Red Sox were that team. That is not the case this postseason, excuse me. So I love that first and foremost for our game. With that being said, the Padres are the team that scare me the most because they're probably the most complete team. No Hassan Kim, I know, so they are missing at least one of their bigger pieces that they have, but they have an entire roster full of shortstops that they move around, and a couple of those guys are actually all three of them are in the outfield, right? Which is kind of amazing when you look at Profar, Merrill, and Fernando Tatis Jr. could all step in and play shortstop if you needed to. There's not an outfield in the league that could do anything close to that. Point there is that they're incredibly athletic. They have the flexibility to move guys around, and I just think that top to bottom, they run the deepest. What they did at the deadline with that bullpen, as soon as they did it, and you started looking at how that thing sized up, and eventually they got Yu Darvish back into the rotation, who at this point is a 4-starter for them with what they have. They're the scariest team for me. They certainly can be beat. I'm banking on the Atlanta Braves making that happen, and Max Fried with a really strong win tonight. And then we see what happens in Game 3. But I think they're the best of the group right now.
Okay, CJ, before we let you go, I have to ask. I have two questions for you.
Again,
One,
double
double up. These are quicker.
Up.
These are quicker answers. One, the Braves yearly have at least 2 to 3 players broadcast. How come you're not involved in that?
Wait, say it again. They have what? Oh, because look at the guys that are on there. What are you joking?
I'm just saying, you played. You played for
I was there for half a year, dude. Look, you're talking about why am I not on the broadcast with Tom Glavine, with John Smoltz, Jeff Franco, who's absolutely loved, and Chipper Jones. Yeah, like there was a lot of people asking me that same question. Braves fans were crying for that, yelling out, "Why is CJ not here?" And then I told them there's a really simple reason. There's a baseball reference page that'll explain to you why.
Oh, well, you kicked Frank Core out, so I mean, I figured you could just kick him out whenever you wanted. So
he stays on.
Then my second question is: over your head, you have some trophies there.
Yeah,
those are Emmys, right? So shouldn't that automatically qualify you for the Players broadcast?
True.
No, again, it's about how good of a player you are, not how good of a broadcaster you are. I also have a golf trophy over there somewhere, and I'm not a good golfer, so they give awards to anybody. You know how it is these days. Everybody gets an award.
So are those national Emmys or those local Emmys? What are the Emmys?
Those are from my days in Texas.
Oh, see?
There you go. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had a good run in Texas.
I'll tell you my favorite, real quick, since you brought it up, I will tell you my favorite of the group. When Adrian Beltre got his 3,000th hit, of course, we do our broadcast. They submit that one for an Emmy, and we end up winning. And so they gave me one. And I did not say a single word during him getting that hit, right? We know this as color analysts, that when the big moments come, lay out, let your play-by-play guy take it over. So I literally was awarded an Emmy for not talking.
Yo, what's up, FT fam? I appreciate you guys loving the content, but I'm seeing only 50% of you guys are subscribed. Go down below, hit that subscribe button so you can get the real inside information on deck. Let's go.
We get it. Mornings are nuts. No time for breakfast, but you need to get your day started right.
What if a delicious, nutritious meal could be ready in seconds? Support for Foul Territory is brought to you by Huel, the world's #1 complete nutrition brand. With over 400 million meals sold worldwide, Huel is trusted by millions of people looking to fuel their days with convenient, complete nutrition. Try it for yourself with this exclusive FT offer. 15% off with the code FOUL at Huel.com.
We're all about saving time, but we get hangry, like a lot. I recently fell in love with the Huel Ultimate Super Greens Powder, which is a perfect blend of 91 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients. I also love their complete nutrition bars, and those hot and savory pouches are fire too.
FT fam, give it a shot. Get 15% off with the code FOUL at HUEL.com. Unlock a healthier, easier way to eat with Huel. Nutritionally complete meals in minutes so you can focus on what really matters.
That's justified because sometimes
Let the
it
crowd
really goes the other way.
Let the crowd tell them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Letting it breathe is a very, very important quality and takes discipline.
Thanks for teaching us to let it breathe. Do you know what you are against AJ in his career, in your career?
I know it's like a minimal amount of at-bats. I'm hoping it's like 0 for 0 with 3 hit by... Okay, and it's not a hit by pitch like I would be hoping it would be?
No, it's a punchy. You punched me
out. It's got to be a punchy. You punched
me.
Feels like it would have been a walk. That's my strength. That is my strength.
Come on, CJ. If Kratz brings it up, trust me, you got me out. Because if I would have been 1 for 1 like a dinger, Kratz would not have brought it up.
That's how you would have started it. You would have started it. Yeah. A couple more plate appearances, I would have got a walk in there for sure.
That would have been impressive. So that was probably not good. You would have walked me.
That's true.
You walk your way out of Florida.
That's true.
That's right. That was right.
It's a big peninsula.
That's good. I do see that all over the signs on the baseball fields down here. Anyway, CJ, awesome to catch up with you, man. Thanks for joining us.
Hold on, before he goes, can the Braves turn this around and win the series?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it takes Max Fried, and Max Fried has been really good. I'll give you something to keep an eye on here tonight. Over his last couple of starts, he completely got rid of his slider. He went to exclusively the sweeper. He was having an issue with lefties. The numbers against lefties have not been good this year. And he's also cutting his fastball more than any other lefty in the game, and he's doing that with intention, which makes his, both of you guys would know, makes the changeup really good when it's on, makes a two-seamer, which he doesn't throw a lot, really good when he's sinking it. Now, sometimes he can cut that two-seamer by accident, but keeping an eye on the fact that he no longer throws a slider, he is only throwing a sweeper. And his last game at home, he nearly threw a complete game. It would have been his third of the year. He was so dialed in. You could see it on the outside. You could see the way that he was performing. that everybody is anticipating that he can find that again, where he just kind of puts a team on his shoulders and deals. It's going to be tough because it's a good lineup in San Diego, but we're all anticipating it.
But he threw like 105 pitches. He's going to be so tired for this start.
Sounds like 4 innings for me.
Though. Yeah, exactly. This is the kryptonite, though, for the Padres. Good lefties. Good lefties can get them. So we'll see. And obviously Lopez has been awesome this year. So, yep, they've got a shot if they can pitch through it. CJ, great to see you, man. Thanks for swinging by.
My pleasure. Take it easy, guys.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.